My mother-in-law wants to control who comes to my daughter's birthday party. She went behind my back, manipulated my husband, and tried to force us to invite someone who has completely ignored our children for 2 years. What happened next changed everything in our family forever. My name is Emily, and I'm 31 years old. For the past 10 years, I thought I had found my place in what seemed like a loving family. But sometimes the people closest to you are the ones who hurt you the most. Let me take you back to where it all began. I met my husband Jake at a bookstore in downtown Seattle. It was one of those rainy Saturday afternoons that Seattle is famous for, and I was browsing through the psychology section, looking for research materials for my graduate thesis. He was in the same aisle, holding a copy of The Gift of Fear and looking completely lost. When he noticed me watching, he held up the book and said, "My sister recommended this, but I have no idea if it's any good." That simple question led to a 2-hour conversation over coffee about everything from personal safety to our favorite authors. Jake was everything I had hoped for in a partner. He was intelligent, compassionate, and had this incredible ability to listen without judgment. He worked as a software engineer but had dreams of starting his own nonprofit someday. When he introduced me to his family 8 months later, I was both nervous and excited. His mother, Linda, seemed genuinely thrilled to meet me. She pulled me into a warm hug and said, "Finally. Jake has told us so much about you. I was beginning to think you were imaginary." His older brother, Trevor, was completely different. From that very first meeting, there was this cold distance that I couldn't understand. When Jake enthusiastically introduced me as his girlfriend, Trevor gave me a brief nod and said, "Hi," in the flattest tone possible before turning his attention back to the football game on television. I remember feeling confused and a little hurt, but I told myself he was probably just focused on the game. "Don't take it personally," Linda had whispered to me later that evening as we helped clear the dinner dishes. "Trevor's always been the quiet type. He'll warm up to you eventually." I wanted to believe her. I really did. But as months turned into years, that warmth never came. The pattern became clear pretty quickly. At family gatherings, Trevor would acknowledge Jake with enthusiasm, talking about work, sports, or whatever project he was working on. But when it came to me, it was like I didn't exist. If I tried to join their conversations, he would give short, polite responses and then steer the discussion back to topics that excluded me. If I wasn't standing right next to Jake, Trevor would literally look through me as if I were invisible. Jake noticed it too, and it bothered him. "I don't understand what his problem is," he told me one night after a particularly awkward family barbecue. "You've been nothing but kind to him, and he acts like you're not even there." We had several conversations about it over the years, but Jake's approach was always to give Trevor the benefit of the doubt. "Maybe he's just protective," Jake would say. "Maybe he needs more time." Time. We gave him plenty of that. 2 years passed, then 3, then 4. Nothing changed. Trevor continued to treat me like a stranger who happened to be dating his brother. When Jake and I got engaged after 5 years together, Trevor's congratulations were so mechanical and brief that it actually made the moment uncomfortable for everyone present. The wedding planning process revealed even more about Trevor's attitude toward me. When we were discussing the wedding party, Jake naturally assumed his brother would be his best man. It was a tradition in their family. The brothers had always been each other's best men at important events. But when Jake asked, Trevor seemed genuinely surprised and said he would think about it. Think about it? What was there to think about? Meanwhile, my relationship with my own brother Michael was completely different. Michael had embraced Jake from day one, treating him like the brother he'd never had. They bonded over their shared love of hiking and craft beer, and Michael was genuinely excited when we got engaged. The choice for maid of honor was easy. My sister Rachel had been my best friend my entire life. When Trevor finally agreed to be Jake's best man, I was relieved, thinking maybe this would be the turning point in our relationship. Maybe being part of our wedding would help him see me as a permanent part of the family. I was wrong. Throughout the entire wedding planning process, Trevor participated with the bare minimum effort required. He organized a bachelor party that felt more like an obligation than a celebration, and his best man speech was so generic it could have been written for any couple. But the real moment that opened my eyes happened during our wedding reception. I was making my rounds, thanking guests for coming, when I overheard Trevor talking to one of Jake's college friends near the bar. The friend was saying something about how beautiful the wedding was and how happy Jake looked. Trevor's response still gives me chills when I think about it. "Yeah, well, we'll see how long it lasts." Not, "I hope they'll be happy," or "Jake deserves this." Just, "We'll see how long it lasts." I stood there frozen, pretending to adjust my dress while my heart pounded. This was supposed to be one of the happiest days of my life, and my new brother-in-law was essentially betting against my marriage. I never told Jake what I heard. I didn't want to ruin our honeymoon or start our marriage with family drama. But from that moment on, I stopped making excuses for Trevor's behavior. The first few years of marriage were blissful despite the ongoing tension with Trevor. Jake and I bought a little house in Ballard, and we spent our weekends fixing it up and making it our own. We adopted a golden retriever named Murphy, and life felt perfect in that simple, everyday way that makes you grateful for ordinary moments. When I got pregnant with our first child 3 years into our marriage, I was over the moon. Jake cried when I showed him the positive pregnancy test, and we spent hours that night talking about our hopes and dreams for our little one. The pregnancy was smooth, and everyone in both families was excited about the new addition. Well, almost everyone. Trevor's reaction to the pregnancy news was typical, a polite, "congratulations," and then immediate deflection to another topic. But I had honestly stopped expecting anything different from him by that point. What hurt more was watching him continue to ignore me even as I grew visibly pregnant. At family gatherings, he would ask Jake about the baby preparations but never directed those questions to me, even though I was sitting right there. When our daughter Sophia was born, it was the most incredible experience of my life. She was perfect, 10 fingers, 10 toes, and these bright blue eyes that seemed to look right into your soul. Jake was a natural father from the moment they placed her in his arms. He would talk to her constantly, telling her about his day, reading her stories, singing off-key lullabies that made her smile. The decision about godparents was easy for us. We wanted people who would be active, loving presences in Sophia's life. My brother Michael and his wife were the obvious choice. They had been trying to have children of their own and poured all their love into being the best aunt and uncle possible. They came to visit every week, brought thoughtful gifts, and genuinely delighted in every milestone Sophia reached. When we announced our choice of godparents at Sophia's baptism, I watched Linda's face carefully. There was a flicker of something, disappointment? Hurt. But she recovered quickly and said all the right things about how wonderful Michael and his wife would be in that role. Trevor, predictably, showed no reaction at all. But something shifted after that day. The cold indifference I had grown accustomed to from Trevor evolved into something that felt more deliberate, more pointed. At family gatherings, he would interact with Jake but now seemed to actively avoid acknowledging not just me, but Sophia as well. Our beautiful daughter, who smiled at everyone and everything, was completely invisible to her uncle. I started to notice things that broke my heart. When we would arrive at family events, Sophia would light up seeing all the familiar faces. She would reach for Linda, who would scoop her up with grandmotherly joy. She would giggle when Jake's father made funny faces at her. But when Trevor was in the room, she would look at him with curious eyes, waiting for the acknowledgement that never came. He would look right past her as if she weren't there. Jake noticed it too, and it was the first time I saw him get genuinely angry with his brother. After one particularly painful family dinner where Trevor completely ignored Sophia's attempts to get his attention, Jake confronted him in the kitchen. "What is your problem with my daughter?" Jake asked, his voice tight with controlled anger. "I don't have a problem with her," Trevor replied, not even looking up from the beer he was opening. "Really? Because you act like she doesn't exist. She's your niece, Trevor. She's family." Trevor shrugged. "I'm just not good with kids." "That's not an excuse, and you know it. This is about Emily, isn't it? You've never accepted her, and now you're taking it out on an innocent child." The conversation escalated from there, with Trevor becoming defensive and Jake becoming more frustrated. It ended with Trevor leaving early and Jake so upset he barely spoke the rest of the evening. Linda tried to smooth things over, making excuses about Trevor being stressed at work and promising she would talk to him. But nothing changed. If anything, Trevor's behavior became even more obvious after that confrontation. It was like he was making a point of showing exactly how little he cared about my existence or my daughter's. Sophia's first birthday party was a small affair, just close family and a few friends. We held it at our house, with decorations in her favorite colors and a cake shaped like her beloved stuffed elephant. It was a beautiful day filled with laughter and joy. Trevor didn't come. When Linda asked where he was, she made some excuse about him having other plans, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes. The thing is, nobody made a big deal about Trevor's absence that day. Life went on. Sophia had a wonderful time surrounded by people who genuinely loved her. The photos from that party show pure happiness, a little girl celebrating with family members who cherished every moment with her. Fast forward to last year, and I found out I was pregnant again. Jake and I were thrilled to give Sophia a sibling, and this pregnancy felt even more special because Sophia was old enough to understand that she was going to be a big sister. She would pat my growing belly and say "baby" in her sweet little voice, and it melted my heart every time. Our son Lucas was born in March, and he was just as perfect as his sister. Jake joked that he was going to have to get a bigger wallet for all the photos he wanted to carry around. Sophia adjusted beautifully to being a big sister, always wanting to help with diaper changes and bottle feeding. Trevor's reaction to Lucas's birth was exactly what I expected, which is to say, no reaction at all. When we announced the birth to the family, he sent a text that simply said, "Congrats." Not even, "Congratulations," just "Congrats." No visit to the hospital, no gift, no acknowledgement that his brother had just welcomed his second child into the world. As Lucas grew from a newborn into a bright, curious baby, the pattern continued. Trevor would interact with Jake at family gatherings but completely ignore both children. It was heartbreaking to watch, but I had honestly grown numb to it. What bothered me more was seeing Linda make excuses for her son's behavior. "He's just not comfortable around babies," she would say. Or, Trevor, he's always been more of a loner." I wanted to scream that being uncomfortable around babies didn't excuse ignoring your own family members, but I held my tongue for Jake's sake. Now here we are, 2 weeks before Sophia's second birthday, and I'm dealing with a situation that finally made me realize I need to set some serious boundaries. I was talking to Linda about the party plans, going over the guest list and making sure we had enough space for everyone. It was going to be bigger than last year's celebration. Sophia had made friends at daycare, and we wanted to include some of the other parents and children she played with regularly. "What about Trevor?" Linda asked suddenly, in the middle of our conversation about party favors. I paused, genuinely confused. "What about him?" "Well, will he be invited to Sophia's party?" The question caught me completely off guard. After everything that had happened, or rather, everything that hadn't happened, I had assumed it was obvious that Trevor wouldn't be coming. He hadn't shown interest in Sophia's first birthday. He had never once acknowledged her existence. Why would he suddenly want to come to her second birthday party? "No, Linda, he won't be invited," I said as gently as I could. "Trevor has made it very clear that he's not interested in being part of Sophia's life." The change in Linda's demeanor was immediate and dramatic. Her face crumpled, and she pressed her hand to her chest like I had physically wounded her. "Oh, Emily, no. You can't do that. You can't exclude Trevor from family celebrations." "I'm not excluding him," I explained, trying to keep my voice calm. "Trevor has excluded himself. He didn't come to her first birthday party. He has never once acknowledged her in person. He doesn't acknowledge Lucas either. Why would I invite someone who clearly doesn't want to be there?" "But that's just how Trevor is," Linda said, her voice rising with emotion. "He's always been quiet and reserved. That doesn't mean he doesn't care about the children." I felt that familiar frustration building in my chest. "Linda, there's a difference between being quiet and completely ignoring your niece and nephew. Trevor doesn't just avoid interacting with them, he acts like they don't exist." "You're being too harsh," Linda insisted. "Trevor is Jake's brother. Their family. This is going to devastate him when he finds out he wasn't invited." Devastate him? The man who couldn't be bothered to send more than a 2-word text when his nephew was born was going to be devastated about missing a birthday party? I looked at Linda, this woman who had welcomed me into her family 10 years ago, and realized she was more concerned about Trevor's hypothetical feelings than she was about the actual well-being of her grandchildren. "Linda, I understand that this is difficult for you, but this decision isn't up for debate. This is Sophia's day, and I want it filled with people who love her and want to celebrate with her. Trevor has had 2 years to show interest in being part of her life, and he's chosen not to." Linda's eyes filled with tears. "But what will people think when they notice Trevor isn't there? What will the family say? It's going to be so embarrassing for everyone." That comment hit me like a slap in the face. She was more worried about potential embarrassment than she was about the fact that her son had been treating his niece and nephew like they were invisible. More worried about what people might think than about creating a loving, supportive environment for her grandchildren. "The same family that didn't say anything when Trevor missed Sophia's first birthday?" I asked. "The same family that hasn't questioned why Trevor never interacts with the children at any gathering? I think they'll understand." Linda left our conversation clearly upset, but I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. 2 days later, Jake came home from work looking troubled. "We need to talk," he said, which are 4 words that never lead to anything good. "My mom texted me today about Sophia's party," he began, settling onto the couch next to me while Sophia played with her blocks nearby and Lucas napped in his bouncer. My stomach dropped. "What did she say?" Jake pulled out his phone and read directly from the message. "Jake, I'm devastated about the situation with Trevor and Sophia's party. Emily is making a terrible mistake by not inviting him. You're brothers, and this kind of division is going to tear the family apart. Everyone will notice he's not there, and it's going to be embarrassing for all of us. Please talk to her and help her understand that this is wrong." I felt my face flush with anger. Linda had gone behind my back, trying to manipulate Jake into overriding my decision. She was attempting to make him choose between supporting his wife or appeasing his mother and brother. It was exactly the kind of boundary-crossing behavior that I should have addressed years ago. What did you tell her? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I told her that we make decisions about our children together, and that I support whatever you decide, Jake said. But she's really upset. She kept saying that Trevor has been asking about the party and that he really wants to come. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. Jake, when has Trevor ever asked about anything related to our children? When has he ever expressed interest in spending time with them? Jake was quiet for a moment, and I could see him working through the logic of what I was saying. You're right, he said finally. I can't think of a single time he's asked about either kid. Your mother is lying, Jake. Or at best, she's exaggerating some casual comment Trevor made into evidence that he desperately wants to be at this party. But even if he did suddenly develop an interest in Sophia's birthday, where has that interest been for the past 2 years? We talked for over an hour that night, with Jake finally admitting that he had been making excuses for Trevor's behavior for too long. He acknowledged that his brother's treatment of our children was unacceptable and that he should have addressed it more forcefully years ago. I kept hoping he would come around, Jake said. I kept thinking that maybe if we just gave him time, he would realize what he was missing. But you're right, it's been 2 years, and if anything, he's gotten worse. I don't want to create drama, I told Jake. I just want to protect our children from people who make them feel unwelcome or ignored. Sophia is starting to notice these things now. She's going to start asking questions about why Uncle Trevor doesn't talk to her or play with her like other adults do. The thought of having to explain to our innocent daughter why her uncle didn't seem to love her made my heart ache. Children shouldn't have to question their worth based on the inexplicable behavior of adults who are supposed to care about them. Jake nodded, understanding the weight of what I was saying. You're absolutely right. I'm sorry it took me this long to fully support you on this. Trevor made his choice, and now we're making ours. But Linda wasn't done. Over the next few days, she sent several more texts to Jake, each one more emotional than the last. She talked about family unity, about forgiveness, about how Trevor was going through a difficult time and needed our support. When Jake didn't respond the way she wanted, she started calling. I happened to be in the room when she called the 3rd time, and Jake put the phone on speaker so I could hear the conversation. Jake, honey, I'm so worried about this situation, Linda said, her voice thick with emotion. I've been losing sleep over it. Trevor is heartbroken that he's not invited to Sophia's party. Mom, when did Trevor tell you he was heartbroken? Jake asked directly. There was a pause. Well, he mentioned that he was looking forward to the party, and when I told him about the situation, he was very upset. What exactly did he say when you told him? Jake pressed. Another pause, longer this time. He said it was unfortunate. Jake and I looked at each other. He said it was unfortunate? That's it? Well, yes, but I could tell he was more upset than he was letting on. You know how Trevor is, he doesn't express his emotions easily. Mom, listen to me carefully, Jake said, his voice firm but not unkind. Trevor has had 2 years to build a relationship with Sophia. He chose not to. He didn't come to her first birthday party, and nobody in the family seemed concerned about that. He doesn't interact with her at family gatherings. He didn't acknowledge Lucas when he was born. These aren't the behaviors of someone who cares about being part of our children's lives. But he's your brother, Linda said, her voice breaking. Family is supposed to forgive and include each other, no matter what. And Emily is my wife, Jake replied. She's the mother of your grandchildren. She has every right to decide who gets to celebrate our daughter's birthday in our home. If Trevor wanted to be included, he should have made an effort to be part of Sophia's life. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes, with Linda cycling through different emotional appeals. She tried guilt, this is going to cause a permanent rift in the family, manipulation, what would your father think about this division, and even mild threats, I don't know if I can enjoy the party knowing Trevor is sitting at home alone. That last comment particularly bothered me. Linda was essentially saying that she would let her concern for Trevor's feelings ruin her own granddaughter's birthday celebration. She was prioritizing the comfort of her adult son who had shown no interest in the birthday girl over the joy and well-being of the 2-year-old whose special day it was supposed to be. Jake handled the call better than I expected, remaining calm but firm throughout. When Linda finally hung up, he looked exhausted. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, I told him. I'm sorry you've been dealing with this alone for so long, he replied. I should have set boundaries with my family years ago. Over the next week, the pressure campaign intensified. Linda started involving other family members, telling them about the situation and asking them to intervene. Jake's father called, suggesting that maybe we could find a compromise. Jake's aunt sent a long email about the importance of family forgiveness. Even some family friends who had heard about the drama through Linda reached out to offer their unsolicited opinions. The most frustrating part was how everyone seemed to have conveniently forgotten that Trevor had been excluding himself from our children's lives all along. Suddenly, everyone was an expert on family dynamics and child development, insisting that children needed to be surrounded by all their relatives, regardless of how those relatives treated them. Where were all these concerned voices when Trevor missed Sophia's first birthday? I asked Jake after his cousin called to lecture us about family unity. Where was this concern when Trevor couldn't be bothered to visit Lucas in the hospital? Why is everyone suddenly so worried about inclusion now? The answer, of course, was that Linda had presented the situation to everyone as if we were arbitrarily excluding Trevor from a family celebration, rather than responding to 2 years of his deliberate indifference toward our children. She had made herself the victim and us the villains, and people were responding to her version of events rather than the reality of what had been happening. 3 days before the party, Linda made one final attempt to change our minds. She showed up at our house unannounced, ostensibly to drop off a birthday gift for Sophia but clearly hoping to corner us into a conversation about Trevor. Sophia was delighted to see her grandmother, running to the door with open arms and chattering excitedly about her upcoming party. Seeing the pure joy on my daughter's face reminded me exactly why I was fighting this battle. This was about protecting her happiness and ensuring that her special day was filled with love and positivity. Linda stayed for about an hour, playing with Sophia and Lucas while making seemingly casual comments about the upcoming celebration. "I just think it's so sad when families can't come together for important occasions," she said while helping Sophia with a puzzle. "Birthdays are supposed to bring everyone together." When the children were occupied with their toys, Linda turned to me with pleading eyes. "Emily, I'm begging you to reconsider about Trevor. I know he hasn't been perfect, but he's family. Can't you find it in your heart to give him another chance?" I took a deep breath, knowing that this was likely my last opportunity to make Linda understand my position. "Linda, I need you to really hear what I'm saying. This isn't about punishment or revenge. This is about protecting my children's emotional well-being. Sophia is old enough now to notice when adults ignore her or treat her as if she's not important. I won't subject her to that on her birthday. But maybe if you invited him, it would be a fresh start," Linda suggested. "Maybe being included would help Trevor realize what he's been missing. Or maybe he would continue to ignore her in front of all her friends and family, making her feel rejected on what should be the happiest day of her year," I replied. I'm not willing to use my daughter's birthday party as an experiment in whether Trevor might suddenly develop basic human decency. Linda's face fell, and I could see that my words had finally sunk in. For the first time, she seemed to understand that this wasn't about adult drama or family politics, it was about protecting a child from emotional harm. "I never thought about it that way," she said quietly. "Linda, I know you love Trevor, and I understand that this situation is painful for you. But you have to understand that my first priority has to be my children's well-being. If Trevor wants to be part of their lives, he needs to show them that they matter to him. Words aren't enough, children need to see love in action." We talked for another 20 minutes, and by the time Linda left, I felt like we had reached some kind of understanding. She didn't agree with our decision, but she seemed to accept that we had the right to make it. The morning of Sophia's birthday party dawned bright and clear, one of those perfect Seattle days when the sun shines and Mount Rainier is visible in all its glory. I woke up early to finish the decorations and put the finishing touches on Sophia's birthday cake. Jake had blown up what felt like 100 balloons, and our house looked like a rainbow had exploded inside it. Sophia woke up with the excitement that only comes with being 2 years old and knowing that today was all about you. She insisted on wearing her new birthday dress right after breakfast, and she spent the morning dancing around the house, singing songs and telling everyone who would listen that it was Sophia's birthday. As guests started arriving, I felt a peace settle over me that I hadn't experienced in weeks. The house filled with laughter and conversation. My parents had driven up from Oregon, and my brother Michael brought his kids to play with Sophia and Lucas. Jake's father was there, along with several aunts, uncles, and cousins. Friends from our neighborhood came with their children, and some of Sophia's daycare friends arrived with their parents. The party was everything I had hoped it would be. Sophia was the center of attention in the best possible way, surrounded by people who genuinely delighted in celebrating her. She opened presents with enthusiasm, played games with her friends, and beamed with happiness throughout the entire afternoon. Linda arrived about an hour into the party, and I was relieved to see that she seemed determined to focus on Sophia rather than the family drama. She brought a beautiful dollhouse that Sophia immediately fell in love with, and she spent time playing with her granddaughter and helping her show the gift to other guests. At one point during the party, I overheard one of Jake's cousins asking Linda where Trevor was. Linda simply said, "He couldn't make it today," and changed the subject. No drama, no explanations, no attempt to make anyone else uncomfortable. Just a simple statement that allowed the conversation to move on. As the party wound down and guests started to leave, I realized that not a single person had commented on Trevor's absence beyond that one casual question. The doom and gloom that Linda had predicted, the embarrassment, the awkward questions, the family tension, none of it had materialized. People were too busy celebrating Sophia to worry about who wasn't there. After the last guest left and we finished cleaning up, Jake and I sat on the couch with Sophia between us, looking through the photos from the day. She was exhausted but happy, clutching her new stuffed animal and babbling about all the fun she had. "That was perfect," Jake said, scrolling through pictures of Sophia blowing out her candles. "Look how happy she is in every single photo." He was right. In every picture, Sophia was glowing with joy. She was surrounded by love, celebrated by people who genuinely cared about her, and completely unaware of any family drama or adult complications. This was exactly what I had wanted for her, a day of pure happiness without any shadows or uncomfortable moments. "I'm proud of you for standing your ground," Jake told me later that evening as we were putting the children to bed. "I know it wasn't easy dealing with all the pressure from my family, but you were right. Today was about Sophia, and she had the perfect day." As I tucked Sophia into bed that night, she looked up at me with sleepy eyes and said, "Best birthday ever, Mommy." My heart swelled with gratitude and relief. We had made the right choice. The aftermath of the party was surprisingly quiet. I had expected more guilt trips from Linda or perhaps angry calls from other family members, but none of that happened. It seemed like seeing Sophia's happiness at the party had helped everyone understand why we had made the decision we did. A few days later, Linda called Jake to thank us for hosting such a wonderful celebration. "Sophia was so happy," she said. "That's what really matters." She didn't mention Trevor at all, and neither did Jake. It felt like we had finally moved past the drama and back to focusing on what was truly important. Over the following weeks, I reflected a lot on the entire experience and what it had taught me about boundaries, family dynamics, and protecting children from toxic behavior. I realized that I had spent too many years trying to accommodate people who weren't willing to make any effort to accommodate us. I had been so focused on keeping the peace that I had forgotten that some battles are worth fighting, especially when they involve protecting your children. The situation with Trevor also made me think about the kind of family environment I wanted to create for Sophia and Lucas. I wanted them to grow up knowing that they are valued and loved, that they deserve to be treated with respect and kindness, and that it's okay to set boundaries with people who don't treat them well, even if those people are family members. Children learn about their worth from the way the adults in their lives treat them. If I had allowed Trevor to continue ignoring them while still being included in family celebrations, what message would that have sent to Sophia and Lucas? That their feelings don't matter? That they should accept poor treatment from people just because they're related? That love and attention are optional in family relationships? I never want my children to learn those lessons. I want them to know that they deserve to be celebrated, acknowledged, and loved. I want them to understand that healthy relationships require effort from both parties, and that it's okay to step away from people who consistently make them feel bad about themselves. Looking back, I can see that the situation with Trevor's invitation was never really about a birthday party. It was about establishing the kind of family culture we wanted to create, the values we wanted to instill in our children, and the boundaries we needed to set to protect our family's well-being. Linda's attempts to override our parenting decisions had been a wake-up call. It showed me that I needed to be more assertive about protecting my children from people who didn't have their best interests at heart, even if those people were family members. It also showed me that sometimes doing the right thing means disappointing people who want you to prioritize their comfort over your children's well-being. In the weeks following the party, our relationship with Linda improved significantly. Without the constant pressure to include Trevor, we were able to focus on building positive relationships between her and the grandchildren. She started coming over more often for casual visits, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy spending time with Sophia and Lucas without any agenda or underlying tension. Jake's relationship with Trevor remained strained, but that wasn't our fault or our responsibility to fix. Trevor had been given countless opportunities to be part of our children's lives, and he had chosen not to take advantage of them. The consequences of that choice were his to bear, not ours to manage. As for Sophia and Lucas, they continued to thrive in an environment surrounded by people who genuinely loved and appreciated them. Sophia started asking more questions about family relationships, and I was able to answer them honestly while still maintaining age-appropriate boundaries. When she asked why some people came to her party and others didn't, I simply told her that we invited people who love spending time with her and who make her feel special. The whole experience taught me that protecting your children sometimes means making difficult decisions that other people won't understand or support. It means being willing to be seen as the bad guy by people who prioritize adult feelings over children's well-being. It means trusting your instincts about what's best for your family, even when those instincts go against family traditions or expectations. Most importantly, it taught me that my job as a mother isn't to make everyone else comfortable, it's to create a safe, loving environment where my children can grow and thrive. Sometimes those two things are incompatible, and when that happens, my children's well-being has to come first. Now, as I watch my children play together, secure in the knowledge that they are surrounded by people who cherish them, I know we made the right choice. Sophia's second birthday party was perfect not because everyone was there, but because everyone who was there genuinely wanted to celebrate her. And that's exactly the kind of love I want my children to grow up expecting and accepting nothing less than. The experience has made me more confident in my role as a mother and more willing to trust my instincts when it comes to protecting my family. I've learned that setting boundaries isn't about being mean or vindictive, it's about creating healthy environments where love and respect can flourish. And sometimes, that means saying no to people who haven't earned the right to be part of your children's most important moments. Today, as I plan ahead for future celebrations and family gatherings, I do so with a clearer understanding of what I will and won't accept. I know that there will likely be more situations where I'll need to choose between keeping other people happy and protecting my children's emotional well-being. And I know that when those moments come, I'll choose my children every single time. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones who matter most. They're the ones whose happiness and security depend on the choices I make. And they deserve a mother who will fight for them, even when that fight is with people who are supposed to be on our side. That's what I learned from my mother-in-law's attempt to control who came to my daughter's birthday party. Sometimes the people closest to you are the ones you need to set the firmest boundaries with. Sometimes protecting your family means disappointing people who think their feelings matter more than your children's well-being. And sometimes, the best way to show love is to refuse to accept anything less than it in return.